Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hi, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Dr. Dawn Menge. We are going to be talking about domestic abuse and divorce, which if you've been following me for any point of time, you know that I'm very familiar with both of those topics. So, Dr. Dawn, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you with us today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Well, it's exciting. Let's start off with just having you tell us a little bit about your story, so we can kind of get an idea of who you are.
I was married for 27 years. We had 3 children who are now in their 30s, all married, doing wonderful. And I will be having my 6th grandchild in July. So I'm really excited about that.
Yay.
I have been teaching students with severe cognitive delays for over 20 years. And I also have an educational series that I write based on my family adventures. And it's named after my grandmother. And this is something that I really started after my divorce, and I started my PhD. So that's really what I want to focus on today, is not what happened, but how I worked past it.
Sure. So, with divorce, it just brings up so many emotions. It's a very emotional time. I've been divorced multiple times. Some of them were amicable and some were not so nice. So let's talk about that. How do we get through something like the trauma of divorce without, it scarring us, basically?
Well, you have to concentrate on yourself and what you have to offer, what your passions are. And that's what I did. My ex-husband was a fireman, and there was some substance abuse. And it just, got to the point where we couldn't do that. Something bad, really, really bad was going to happen. So we did. And it was difficult because we were at the point where we had, we'd gotten our retirement set, and, and the children were raised, and I thought, wow, now we're going to get to have fun. And I thought we'd be able to work things out, and we weren't able to, which is okay. So what I did when we were getting divorced is I was already teaching, and that was a good thing. I had a lot of support there with the administration and with my friends. And I had written a book when I was getting my credential. And so I decided that I wanted to publish it. That was one thing I was going to do. He was doing whatever he was doing and kind of taking our life apart that we had built. And I didn't want to go down that path. So I went my own path, and I published the book, and it was self-published. And I immediately started getting awards and interviews, and people were asking me, what are you going to do next? And I wasn't going to do anything next. I was going through a very traumatic divorce, and just trying to, and I lost 2 houses, and, we had to go through bankruptcy. So, I was starting over all by myself because I had gotten married at 19. And so I like to travel, and I travel with my family, my kids, my mom. And so I named the book after my grandmother, who was an astute businesswoman. She was really tough, and her and her father went door to door and created the Methodist Ministers Federal Credit Union. And she was a world traveler. So I named the book after her, but I'm actually the one that's doing the traveling. And I don't put anything in my books unless I actually have done it. And so that's really what I did, is I really focused on doing that. And, that really helped with my self-esteem and moving in a direction by myself, which is hard when you've been married, especially so young. You kind of develop who you are in your marriage, and it's hard to be somebody totally separate. But thankfully, I did have a profession, and I was able to do this. And of course, then I had an excuse to travel. And I love traveling. I took my kids, they took me, and we went to Alaska. I went to New Orleans, Baja. I did one on Baja, California. I had a friend that I grew up with in Hawaii, and I was able to go to Hawaii once every 6 months. In fact, when we got divorced, I walked out of mediation and immediately called him and his wife, and I got on a plane the next day, and I recovered for about a week over there because it was so exhausting, trying to get divorced. Mm-hmm. And so that was really helpful, just to have a really close friend who just didn't want anything from you. It was okay just to lay on the couch and rest. And that's what you really need, is a lot of support. And if you can't find it within your family or, close, you can go to support groups. You can go to counseling. I mean, you really need to find an avenue where it's positive and people are going to support you, and you start building your self-esteem up again, and you start thinking about your passions. Like, what do you love outside of the marriage? You're a person. And sometimes we forget that we're individuals because we're busy being married and taking care of kids and working and all that. Right. But, you have a passion. It could be gardening. For me, it was traveling and writing my books and educating people. And so I really went into that. And I also started my PhD after I got divorced, during it. And that's another thing, it took my mind off of everything else because it was really hard, and I really had to focus on what I was doing. And that really helped me stay centered and stay positive. Even though, there were times I slept on people's couches, trying to rebuild my life. And so that's what you have to do. You really have to find out or remember who you are and what your passions are. And that's where your strength is going to come from.
I think, you hit a great point there. Find out who you are. We can remember who we were before it happened, but we're not that same person anymore. Right. You're not the same person now that you were at 19 when you first got married. So, no. It is an adventure and a journey of rediscovery of, who am I today? I'm so used to being this was me when Mark died. I'm so used to being a we. I didn't know what me was. Right. And so I had to stop and think, okay, what does me want? What do I want? And it was definitely a journey of self-discovery, and it was a lot of fun, and it still is.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to take some of it, like not what happened to you, but some of the things, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna make mistakes. For sure. And you have to kind of like go, okay, well, that didn't work out, but we're going to do this, and you just have to keep going. And that's one thing that when you're in an abusive relationship, you start losing your self-esteem, you start doubting yourself, especially if you're being gaslighted. And you have to get past that. And sometimes, like, your closest family, they don't see that, because if the person that's abusing you is close to them, they're only going to see the good part of them, or they're going to think that you're over dramatic or. Oh, sure. And that actually happened to me when I was getting divorced. My lawyer, I had him removed from the home because I was homeless because of the violence. And my lawyer was not real happy with me, and until she met him in the courtroom. And then she said, you need to get a restraining order on him. And like, that's what I was trying to do. But she was so used to, people making things up when you're getting divorced and all that, no, I wasn't making it up. It was real. And I actually had, that this isn't related to divorce, but it was related to dating. And that was interesting, trying to date. Like I said, I was 19 when I got married. I hadn't, I was really active as a teenager, and, I had one long-term relationship. It was 6 months, and that was it. I was just busy having fun. And so dating, that was interesting. So I had an issue with another woman, and she didn't want me dating this man. And so she actually stalked me and had my neighbors harassing me inside of my house. And it went on for years. And they gaslighted me and all of that until I finally sold my house. And then it went into some internet things and things like that. So it was really rough. So when you start dating again, you have to be careful too about like who you're around, and you don't know the other people, even though they sound like really great. You don't know who they know or who their friends are. And something I did with that is when I left the detective, we were sitting in the sheriff's office, my friend and I, talking to the detective. And this had gone on for years. So by then, my nerves were shot. I was physically exhausted. I had to move in with my son for about a year. And thankfully, he was a lot of help for me. He just let me be and let me be there. But what I did is I wrote a book about it. I wrote a children's book about it. And it's just about being kind and not hurting other people if you're jealous or angry. And it's been like trending in the UK, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. But that was another way that I kind of got rid of what they did and made it into a positive thing in my life, And so it was a way for me to talk about it without talking about like really what they did, trying to get over what was done to me, because that's hard, and it's hard to get over that, to not be afraid, and your nerves are rattled, and you don't know,
Right.
You don't know if this thing that's happening, are they doing it, or is it just happening? It takes a while to get over all of that. But writing the book and having it published, it took me a couple of years to feel safe enough to publish it. So I actually just did about 3 months ago. And that was really good for me. And, after my friend and I left the sheriff's office, we actually, she was my assistant for 20 years. So she was a really good friend of mine, and she's gone through all of this with me. She's really been a good support system. But we drove to Vegas, and we wrote this story while we were driving to Vegas. And so it's turned out really well. And so now I'm able to kind of move past it and say, okay, this is that happened. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm okay now. And so not everybody can do that, but I actually just won an award with Conquering Disabilities with Film Festival. And the woman, she's bipolar. And she was talking about how this all started for her. And what she started writing things down. So that's a good thing when you've been through something awful, is writing it down, journaling. And then you'll go back and go, oh my gosh, but she started writing it down. Then she started a blog, and then her blog turned into a book, and now her book is a movie. And she just got back from Branson, Missouri, from the film festival. And so her whole life is like taking off. So it didn't weigh her down forever. And that's what you have to focus on, is not letting it weigh you down.
Right. Yeah, because it can get heavy. It can get very heavy. When I went through my last divorce, there was a lot of drinking and stuff on his part. When it was always fun taking the kids to go see him. That was a real treat.
Yeah.
There was one time where, he followed me into the gas station parking lot and started punching my car window with my girls in the car, and just crazy things like that. And that took a while to get over. And we're to the point now where we're amicable and we can talk about things. Of course, the girls are almost completely grown, but it took a long time to get to that point. But I didn't focus on the negative part as much as I could. Of course, I couldn't ignore it, but I tried very hard not to focus on it.
Right.
And instead, I focused on my business, my girls, my new relationship that I was in, and all of that. And that helped me to overcome what I was going through with the divorce.
Yes. Yes.
Just kind of redirect, reframe.
Yes. When that was happening to me at my house, I didn't want them to know that they were bothering me, you know. And so I had these beautiful, there were morning glories, this all over the back of my house I had in the back porch. So when they were blooming every morning, I would go and take pictures of the flowers. Or if I went somewhere and I was feeling like just exhausted from all of it, I would take pictures of flowers. And that really helped me, because you really do forget how beautiful the world is, you know, especially when you're going through something horrific. And that really helps, because the flowers are beautiful. The sky is beautiful. You know, I would go to the ocean, and just the sound of the ocean would be soothing for me. And so you really have to find that place where you have peace.
Yes, your happy spot.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just going within yourself to find that happy spot.
Yes.
You know, with meditation or whatever.
Sometimes it's just hiding in the bathroom.
Right? Yeah, with a pint of ice cream. That can be very calming. Well, Dr. Dawn, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing a little bit about your story, and giving us some good ideas on how we can move past a traumatic event such as divorce, and come out shining on the other side. How can we find you on the internet?
I have a website, Dr. Dawn Menge. I have a Facebook, a Dawn Menge 1, an Instagram, Dawn Menge, a Twitter, Queen Vernita, and my publisher is Rushmore Press. And you can, anybody can DM me or email. My email is dawnmenge@hotmail.com. You can email me and I will respond if you're interested in my books. They're all over the internet, or you can email me and I can send you a copy plus shipping.
Sounds fantastic. And listeners, as always, I will have all those links on the show notes. Go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Dr. Dawn's show, and all her links and everything will be right there for you if you're listening on one of our partner stations. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Oh, thank you much for having me.
And listeners, thank you as always for joining. We'll talk to you next week.